It's finally time to take a look at Pythion, a fusion champion that was released to the game only 3 months ago in January, and he is kind of one of the better revivers in the game. The only two ones that are better is basically Siphi and Duchess, and he's pretty close to them and kind of comparable, though usually people do prefer those other two over him. But he is very efficient champion for most players because you will get a lot of bang for your buck, and if you do level him to 6 star, then you will definitely be able to use him in tag team arena, live arena, maybe classic arena defense, and if you're mid game, maybe even in dungeons. So he's definitely one of those champions that if you do get him, you will rank him to 6 star and you will definitely find some use to him. But of course I will mostly focus on the PvP aspects of him, but I do use him in Hydra myself as well. His kit overall is very similar to Duchess, and he's kind of healer version of Duchess. So Duchess's A1 is a double hitter that gives a small shield to one ally with lowest HP, and Pythion's A1 does the exact same, but it heals, and this one is actually significantly better than Duchess A1. It does scale with Pythion's HP, and he does have pretty good base HP as well, so it is very good A1 skill. And this is one of those skills that even if your team is locked out, Pythion being able to spam A1 and heal your team with this can be kind of significant sometimes, and it can save your team. And in meta where pretty much everybody will use a lockout champion, if they do have one, this is a very good A1 skill to have. Then the A2 is a typical cleanse skill that will remove all debuffs from your team and also heal everybody by 10% of their max HP and 5% for each debuff that was removed, and then it will also give them block debuffs for 2 turns. Now this doesn't scale with Pythion's HP, so it doesn't heal your team that much, but it is still a pretty decent skill and it fits the kit of a reviver champion. Then his A3 skill revives your team with 50% HP and turn meter and 25% strengthen. Now I wish the turn meter was a bit higher here, but having any kind of turn meter when you revive your team is very potent. But of course Siphi does revive with full turn meter, so that one is way better. But still, reviving your entire team with 50% turn meter and giving them strength and buff, it is a very good revive. I mean, you can kind of compare it to Duchess revive. She does have the perk that her Whale makes the rest of the team untargetable, but this one does give turn meter to the team, so probably mostly people would prefer the Duchess revive, but situationally either one can be better and they are kind of comparable. And then his passive is also very similar to Duchess, who clearly he's modeled after, but it reduces the damage on all of your teammates by 5% per buff on them and stacks up to 25%. Now sometimes this doesn't affect your team at all, and sometimes you get the entire 25%. It is very situational, but nowadays when there is a lot of buffs going on in your teams, and you will probably have bolster on somebody, you will often get a lot of use out of this passive. And overall, if you look at his kit and his base stats, he is a very good champion. One other interesting thing about him is that he is Force Affinity Reviver. If he was released to the game maybe 2 years ago or 1 year ago, he would have been incredibly meta back then, but nowadays people are using a lot of Void Affinity nukers and not Magic Affinity nukers as much as they used to back in the day, but you will still see a lot of Rotos and some of the other ones, so he does have a great matchup against them. And he does have also great synergy with Rotos specifically, if he's in your team. The A1 heal is very good with Rotos because it will help Rotos to stay above 50% and proccing his passive. And actually when he was released to the game, I think this was 2 weeks after I got the fusion, and this is the last time that I managed to get rank 2, and it was using him. Of course, this is a bit outdated, and at this point, Taras and Marichka weren't as common yet, and I think we had 2 different 10x events for them after this time, so the meta isn't quite the same, but you were able to even finish rank 2 with him, and I'm sure other people might be able to do it even nowadays with Taras and Marichka, though he doesn't pair with them as well as, let's say, Siphi, so that's why he isn't used a lot right now, but he has the kind of kit that if the meta changes, he might become popular again, so I wouldn't count him out. And then if we take a look at how I geared him, you can definitely gear him in several different ways, like most other revivers. But I would say that in general, because of his A1, you probably don't want to make any kind of super slow builds on him, like you often see on Duchesses in arena defense. Instead, I would consider some kind of medium or fast speed bolster or stone skin build, but resistance builds are always viable as well if you're able to make them. But the way I use him is that he's in full stone skin and he is kind of fast with high amount of HP and defense, so this is more like a balanced and fast build. And the point with this build is that even if enemy locks you out, you might be able to take several turns and get the revive back before they do the lockout again. Of course, this depends a lot on the team, and if they run a speed booster and a fast lockout, it might not be possible, but oftentimes it will be possible, and this kind of build works very well in both arena defense but also live arena. And because in Gold Live Arena, you won't be able to pick same champions as the enemy team, and they might be able to ban one of your champions, he will be something that a lot of people will use. You already do see him a decent amount in silver, but of course if people do have Siphi and Duchess, those two are usually preferred, though he might have the good matchup against Rotos and other magic affinity nukers. But if you build him in this kind of fast and tanky build, then oftentimes he might be able to cleanse your nuker before he gets a turn, maybe cleanse the stun from the enemy Ukko, and if he's in stone skin he might not get stun himself, or maybe you're able to rotate the cooldowns and do multiple turns and get the revive back after getting locked out by enemy lockdown champion like Warlord or Yumeko. But I think that the bolster build is totally equally viable on him, and it is kind of situational which one you want to use. It depends on your team and what kind of gear you have. But definitely in general, in live arena, you often want to have at least one bolster champion in your team, so that you will not get block debuffs from Ukkos, and just overall it helps your team to have some kind of bolster with them. One other important thing about his build is that if you do go for a fast build, or even a medium fast build like this one, probably reaction won't do you a lot of good. Sometimes it will still be definitely useful, maybe if enemy is using Arbiter or Siphi and has very fast nukers, but oftentimes he will go after the enemy nuker, and he will get a lot of use out of revenge accessories. So I would use as many of them as you can, but if you're not able to use them, then I would consider reaction or even refresh. But since he does have the very good A1, him getting these revenge procs can be very impactful to your team and heal it a lot, and might actually make the difference sometimes. He can of course proc them from counter attacks that you get from masteries as well. Then if we take a look at his blessings and masteries, they will be pretty simple and straightforward, but I will definitely say that you want to go with polymorph, and you want to place him as one of the first picks in your team, if possible, so that he will protect with the polymorph procs champions that are after him in team order when you do get hit by AoE attack skills that also do some kind of debuffs like taunt and other effects. And yeah, I have talked about polymorph many times before, and I do have a specific video about polymorph, so if you're unsure how that works, you should check that out. It's only like 5-minute video, but pretty much I wouldn't consider other masteries on him. Ward of the Fallen and Temporal Chains can be good options. If you just want him to stay alive, then Ward of the Fallen is the best mastery because of the 90% damage reduction that you can get from it if you have it at 6 stars, but I wouldn't use it on him. And the other option, Temporal Chains, is good if you're using a speed team, but generally you wouldn't use Pythion in a speed team. But this blessing does stack, so if you are using a speed team, then you probably want to have all of your supports in this mastery or multiple of them. But I would say that debuff skills are so popular in live arena that in all of these kind of champions where you can use polymorph, you should just go with that one and not consider the other options. Then if we take a look at his masteries, it is also pretty simple and straightforward mastery build. Like with all of the other supports, if you are using polymorph, you generally want to use Fearsome Presence, because it does increase the chance that you proc it by 5%. And when enemy lands skills that do multiple different debuffs, all of them have a separate chance to proc polymorph. So let's say that Madame Ceres does her A3, there is 3 different effects in it: buff strip, decrease defense and decrease attack, and all of them can proc polymorph, and this will add 5% extra to all of those individual instances of polymorph proccing, so it can make a huge difference. But if you're not going with polymorph, and let's say you're going in resistance build, then you will of course always go with Unshakable. And one option that people used to use a lot back in the day would be Timely Intervention on Revivers, and this could add you a lot of turn meter, and you might be able to rotate your revive back against lockout teams better with this mastery, so it is an option as well. And of course, Elixir of Life is always an option. And apart from that, these masteries are pretty straightforward and I wouldn't really change anything. You could go with Wisdom of Battle, that has 30% chance to give him block debuffs after he has been CC'd, but generally I do prefer to go with Resurgent and Shadow Heal on him, just because I have him in a very tanky build. But all of these 3 are good options, and it kind of depends, and if you're having a lot of issues with Siphi and you're often using him against something like Siphi or other CC champions, then you might consider going with this one as well. But apart from that, there isn't too much into it. It heavily depends what kind of other teams you're running, but basically you will want to go with some kind of medium to fast tanky build, either in Bolster or Stone Skin. But yeah, let's take a look at some fights and see how he plays out in practice. What do we have here? I guess this is a good matchup that we can use him in. This is kind of the defense team that I used to run back in the day, and I still do run it. I think the last time I used this is maybe 2 weeks ago, but let's see how it plays out against this team. Now, I'm gonna get locked out here, and I will probably get a lot of CC on me from Siphi and from Kimi and Leorios, but he is gonna remove all of them, and he will heal Rotos with A1, so this is actually kind of good matchup for me. And these kind of offense teams used to be very popular, and you still do see them, though the top players will run double Taras and Mariska, but it can have very good matchup against these kind of teams. My Rotos hasn't really taken a lot of damage in this fight, but even if he did take a lot of damage, the A1 will heal Rotos a significant amount, because he has low base HP and Pythion has very high one, and is built very high HP as well, so he will heal something like 8 to 9k per hit on my build, which is gonna be like 1/4 of Roto's health or something, and it does add up, and he might get revenge procs and so on. But is there any other interesting teams that I could try it against? Maybe let's try it against this one as well. So here we do have a Baron who will one-shot most champions. Usually it will basically one-shot anything that isn't in Stone Skin, but my Duchess is very high HP, so it will actually survive unless the Baron is in very good gear. So it might not actually one-shot anything, we will see. He doesn't have attack buff, so probably not this time. But in typical situation, the Baron would basically one-shot anything without Stone Skin, and the Pythion would be able to survive with his Stone Skin build, and then maybe get my Duchess or other Reviver up and give me a chance to make comeback against this team. I wouldn't really use Pythion a lot in offense, but you might even consider using him in offense depending the kind of champions that you have on your account. But the teams that people use in live arena are not really typical classic arena offense teams, and they are more of a mixture between offense and defense team, so he is actually very good there. And yeah, I think this fight could even go either way, unless I'm able to finish off his team. His Baron might be able to one-shot my team after he gets the second A4. Probably not, but some of the strong ones definitely would do it. Maybe I need to find a bit harder team to get a better example, because these couple fights I didn't really take that much damage and my team was kind of able to pull it off pretty easily. But as you can see, he's doing tons of healing in my team and basically topping off my team all the time. Of course, against a bit harder teams with more of the top builds and top champions, I will take more damage than he can heal. But it kind of course depends on your level and your enemy. So this kind of enemy, I clearly have better gear than him, so he's kind of overpowering him. But he's not gonna perform this well against the top teams, because they will do more damage than I can out-heal. But still, he will stall the fights a lot, and he's a very good champion in defense. And after all, he was a fusion champion, so you probably will have him, and you probably have him 6-star already anyway. Probably what you want to take from this video is how to build him, which I will build him a bit faster than people often tend to build revivers. And the issue with the 6-piece Stone Skin, of course, is that it's gonna run out if you're using him in a fast build, but it's usually enough that the enemy nukers will move once before he takes 2 turns, and that's all you need to stall out the Baron, AoE nuke and so on. But yeah, let's see if there's... Maybe I should do a refresh, because none of these teams look... Well, let's fight this team and then look for other teams as well. Here we do have a lot of debuffs and buff strips, so... Okay, I guess he will be very good here, yeah. He didn't get debuffed because of his Stone Skin, and he was able to remove all of the debuffs from my team. And now the enemy isn't really threatening me a lot, though. My Rotos isn't getting any turns because of the Siphi. And as you can see in my team, I have a lot of buffs in my team, so the damage mitigation from his passive will definitely stack. And especially if you're using something like Nakarada that will put many buffs on one of your champions. Yeah, this was kind of close. I think if I run this same fight many times, I'm not gonna win this every time. I can definitely lose to this team, but overall he's dealing with these kind of old school offense teams pretty well. In the modern top teams, people aren't really using Ceres a lot. They might use Kaimar sometimes, but not that much, and not for the buff stripping, but for like resetting the cooldowns. But yeah, maybe we will try him against one of the harder Taras teams and see how that plays out. Yeah, let's fight against this guy. Now, this fight I will probably lose because Taras is so good, but let's see how long he's able to stall against this team. It's starting out well, but I think I will most likely lose because he does have a turn meter boost from both Arbiter and Marichka, and he's able to rotate the lockdown pretty well, so I'm not sure if I will really get my cooldowns back very often. It might be hard to revive my Rotos if he dies. The Duchess in this team is in a very slow build. Pythion is like double the speed of the Duchess, so she's definitely not gonna get revived if the Yumeko is alive. But they do pair very well together in this team, as you can see. The issue is that this kind of team is just a bit outdated because Taras and Marichka and Harima are so meta. If they didn't exist, then Pythion would be meta champion, I'm sure, but now he's not really, but he might always make a comeback. I mean, most people are not gonna have the couple top champions in the meta anyway, so, and you likely will have Pythion because of the fusion, so he is a good choice. I guess we're able to win this team, it's just gonna take forever because Marichka is able to revive the team many times, but against some of the top teams, like if they had these champions, they would be so fast that I would eventually lose this fight because I wouldn't be able to revive my team. But I guess we did win against this guy. Is there any other really hard fights that we could do? Yeah, maybe let's try against this guy. He does have UDK, so I kind of didn't want to pick this fight because I'm not able to do any damage for a very long time. But this is probably gonna be a bit harder team that is able to kill us. I just want to see how long I'm able to stall against a team that is doing a lot of damage and eventually overpowering us. Just to give you some context, like how he does do when you're in the disadvantage. Some of those other fights I did like too good. Yeah, as you can see there, he almost died, but he got a revenge proc and then he got a turn, and then he healed himself a lot, and if he's able to stay alive for a few turns, then he's gonna keep healing my team and be very annoying to the enemy player. Anyway, I think this is enough fights. You probably got the gist of it at this point. I just wanted to do more fights than I usually do on these videos and pick some kind of hard opponents that you don't just see me winning all of the fights. And of course, this is a top account and top team with all of the meta champions, so being able to perform this well is very good. For a fusion champion, he's definitely one of the best ones that we ever had in this game. Ukko is more meta, but it's also because it kind of pairs well with the meta champions and the kind of teams that people run these days. But if the meta changes, then Pythion might become more popular than Ukko at some point, who knows. I think I used Pythion either last reset or second last reset. But I think this week I'm actually gonna run Ukko again. I kind of keep switching between them. Okay, I guess we did end up winning this fight, but as you can see, this one was very close and it could have gone either way, so... And definitely Pythion did a great job in this fight and healed my team a ton. But anyway, that's it for this video, and if you have any other questions about him, maybe I forgot to mention something or I didn't elaborate something well enough, then ask me in comments and I will reply.